Hey, everybody. Sarah's here. Sarah Hetrick is here. Tyler's here. You can see Tyler this time. Tyler's our host today. Let's see. So Tyler's our host today. He's going to watch chat for us. My name is John Paulson. I'm the Senior Brand and Marketing Strategist here at HMG. Today, we're going to talk about marketing strategy personas. Again, I said Sarah's here. Sarah, tell everyone what you do here.
I am the marketing manager here at HMG, so I'm responsible for all marketing efforts and campaigns for our agency, as well as digital marketing execution and management for client projects. And we just want to introduce Tyler real quick. He is our marketing and social media intern, and he's helping us out, maybe taking some pictures there in the background. So,
Tyler, I'm pretty sure they can hear you down there on this mic. So just if you have questions or whatever, that kind of thing, I know I've told Sarah this before, but the table here at HMG, like you can hear when you tap on the table. So I have to break myself of that habit. So just let everybody know, I think we can hear you. So if you have questions, just pipe up. If we can't hear you, then just talk louder, I guess. No, I'm kidding. No. We won't know until the end anyway. So, all right, everybody. This is the second, the second installment in our marketing strategy webinars. We've decided to make this one kind of casual and more interactive between Sarah and I, and even Tyler. So we purposefully prepared a little bit of what we want to talk about, but we also want to make this kind of a conversation as well, because I think that's where a lot of folks get a lot of data, and it's kind of more real life than it is just someone talking with a keynote in the background. So let's dive in. We will have Q&A at the end, so feel free to post your questions in chat. Tyler will let me turn that off. Tyler will kind of facilitate those questions at the end. So let's get started.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
So if you tuned in for our last webinar, you heard us talking about the importance of having a marketing strategy, what it is, how it can benefit your business, why having one is critical for maximum ROI for your marketing efforts. And today we're going to hone in on what we believe is the most important and often most overlooked component of your marketing strategy, which is personas. So we discussed what personas are last time, but if you weren't able to join, let's just revisit that definition really quick. A buyer persona defines your target audience by creating a semi-fictional representation of your target customers based on research and data. Just as a quick clarifier, we just want to make a distinction between buyer personas and customer personas. Here at HMG, we often refer to our personas as buyer personas, but this is more specific for B2B companies that are trying to reach someone in a specific role at a business. And for B2C companies targeting consumers directly, it makes more sense sometimes to use the term customer persona. So you'll see both used sometimes interchangeably, but we just wanted to make that distinction real quick.
Yeah, and sometimes you'll have them intertwined. If you are a if you're Apple, for example, and you're selling iPhones, you have a B2B customer, they have their business area that sells B2B, and they also have customers. The message should still be the same, come from brand story and, tone and voice, and those messages still are the same. It's just a matter of defining the persona separately as a B2B customer versus a customer. So even inside the same product, for example.
Yeah, absolutely. So what is it about personas that's so significant? A couple of the benefits that come from identifying and defining your personas for your business include helping you really understand the mindset of your customers, really get into their minds, understand the way that they're thinking. It helps you to learn things that you might not know about your target audience. It brings in new demographics and psychographics, which we'll get into in just a second.
Yeah, it's kind of the idea of making friends with someone. So you might meet someone at a party, and you may not realize that they're one of your customers, but you may not talk business right away, but it's getting to know someone. So it's kind of getting to know, like, okay, what social accounts do you have? Of course, you wouldn't say that to someone at a party, like, hey, Tyler, what social accounts do you have? But the idea is you're becoming friends with them. And so you want to know information about them. And so really the idea of personas, right, is to understand is to get this documented so that everyone in the organization understands, from customer service to marketing to warranty services or returns or any kind of customer service, that they understand who they're talking to in general. And so that they can kind of not change their tone and voice or message, but maybe the way they handle folks, depending on what bucket that they believe that persona drops in. So.
Yeah. And when you understand who you're talking to, you're going to see more effective results. You're going to see better engagement. People are going to be more receptive to what you're saying because you show that you understand them.
Yeah, and then we just touched on it, right? Serve as an educational resource for new team members. This is something great to bring folks up to speed. I know, Tyler, when you came on as an intern, looking at our internal marketing strategy and understanding personas, if you're out networking somewhere, you can look at it and go, okay, I think this is that person. Okay, this is probably what they're concerned about, you know? And so, you know, it's definitely a strategy. I mean, it's inside marketing strategy. So it's good to have those tones, you know, and how to talk to someone or what their worries, and, you know, and we'll get into those later, but what the persona actually reads out for you. So, okay. Excellent.
So all that is great to hear. And you're probably wondering now, how do you get started?
Mm-hmm.
What's the first step? So finding all of the information is the most important part, and that all boils down to research. And our research process here consists of market research, competitor analysis, stakeholder interviews, and a workshop, which John can talk more about.
Yeah, it's really about getting down to the data that you may think you know, but then driving down deeper. You know, a great workshop for marketing strategy is to have, you know, sales folks inside, marketing folks inside, but also folks like customer service folks that really talk to customers, who understand really what they are about. I think is the best use of a workshop like that, is getting everyone who interacts with the customers, whether they be B2B or a consumer or customer based, so, or B2C. So yeah, market research, like Sarah said, competitor analysis, and then customer stakeholder interviews, and workshops. So, okay. All right, so what we've done here is we've pulled, Austin is such a hotbed of startups. And so what we decided to do for this example was to come up with the 4 basic personas. If any of your startups, not that you're basic, sorry, that's why I meant just basic as far as the ideas of who they are. The three or four individuals that would be inside of a startup. Okay. Now, as we move through this, I want you to understand that inside of a startup, there can be 1 of these folks, or 3 of these folks, or 4 of these folks. So you may meet someone out networking and looking to, you know, grow your business, and you run into someone who says, hey, I've started this startup, and they may be a lone startup. They're probably one of these 4 people. Okay. All right. If they say, oh, hey, let me introduce you to my sales guy. Okay. He's in here as well. So what you'll do is you'll start to understand that what we've done is basically decided these are the 4 people it takes to really build a startup. Just understand that at the moment that you meet them or network with them, you may, or try to go out and reach them through a digital strategy, that there may only be 1 of them. So you have to figure out who it is, right? So, so what we have is we call a superstar leader. This is a person who's optimistic. They're into learning about new things. They may be industry specific, may not be. They're kind of a risk taker. They're very social, extroverted folks, kind of a superstar leader. So think about that person. We're going to dive into that person directly. So I won't get too much more into that, but let's talk about the other 3. So you have an industry veteran. All right, well, let's go to the genius first, because that's really the pivotal key. So the genius is the person who kind of came up with the idea. What's the pain point in the market that they're solving? They're meticulous. They're kind of skeptical because, you know, they hold their idea or their business idea close to them. I think, remember, we're in a startup, right? We're in a startup mindset right now. So they're efficient. Maybe they're private. You know, they think about them at a party. They may like just sit in the corner and talk to people that they know, you know, kind of thing, and not be extroverted, kind of introverted. They're friendly, and, you know, but they're kind of a problem solver. They're more detailed, right? They're the person that when you're talking to them, they're processing and thinking, right? They're a processing type person, a slow processor, because they want to make sure that everything's detailed. Okay. So that's the genius. That's the person who has the idea, right? And if they're smart, what are they going to do? They're going to try to find these other 4 people to partner with, or these other 3 people to partner with. So then let's move to the industry veteran, right? So the genius has this great idea for a piece of software, let's say, and the industry veteran is someone who's been in the game, who knows that market, right? May not be a salesperson, but knows the market, kind of knows the ins and outs, knows what customers require, right? Maybe knows other people that they can hire for the team, right? So they're good, like an HR kind of networked person inside of that organization, but they're a learning person. They're usually, statistics show us that they're a little bit older than the other the people on the team. They're also process oriented, but they also have, they're humble enough that they can go out and sell, right? They can sit next to the superstar leader or even the salesperson and kind of talk the lingo, because the other three parties in there may not know the lingo, right? So that's the person that we're talking about when we talk about the industry veteran. All right, and then you've got the sales animal, right? These are the guys you want to go to football games with, right? Like these are the folks. These folks are, you know, you want her to take you to the bar out to eat or something like that. I mean, these are the really extroverted folks. They're anxious. They're very independent. You know, they're out pushing the product. 9 out of 10 times they may have a link to the industry veteran or even the genius from previous job, or they're linked somehow. But they know that this person can deliver on sales, right? And so everyone has that idea, that sales animal, right, of who they are.
They're the fun one.
Right, exactly. Yeah, they're the fun one. And what's interesting, and someone said that to me before about this layout, is that the genius is fun to his friends, right? The superstar leader is fun to his friends, and the industry veteran is fun to her friends as well, right? So the interesting piece of what you said there is what we have to do is figure out how they're fun and why they're fun, right? Because that's what we want to instill in them when we talk to them digitally, okay? Or in person, right? Okay. All right, so we're gonna dive into a little bit more about the superstar leader, okay? So we've kind of laid the groundwork, right? We have the genius that, again, is come up with the idea, the industry veteran who talks the lingo, kind of has the gravity, you know, that's like, you know, that gives them kind of the, what do you call that? When someone has like, you know, the gravitas, like that, that idea of like, oh, okay, so Sally works for you. Okay, come on in. You know, they have their foot in the door kind of thing, right? Yeah, exactly. They have a good presence, right? Okay. And then you have the sales animal, right? So let's talk about the superstar leader and what they are and really why they're here. Okay. So let's get into that. So when we first lay out a persona, we want to talk in 3 different areas. We talk about personal information and professional information. This is usually demographics. We kind of get into the idea of psychographics a little bit when we talk about them, when we talk about what they worry about and things like that. But we want to know what their personal information is, okay? I'm not talking email addresses and phone numbers. I'm talking, you know, like, are they married? Are they single? Like, what do statistics show us, right? And then it helps us find them better, right? So, and then the bottom half there, when we talk about digital behavior and content responsiveness, that's really around psychographics. That has a lot to do with stereotypes. It has a lot to do with assumptions that we make. There's data backing those assumptions, and they're all, you know, very researched and informed assumptions. But when we do marketing strategy, what we have to do through the interviews and the workshops is we have to make assumptions, right? We can't talk to everyone you want to do business with. So, okay.
Yeah, so demographics are going to be more the details and facts that describe a person, kind of the external physical factors. And then psychographics are going to be how they think, what they value, how they feel, what their habits are, the psychological or emotional factors to a person.
Yeah, exactly. So as we get into the first step, which is demographics and a little bit of psychographics, so we've kind of put those, you'll see, the audience will see that we will start to, Sarah and I will do a good job of trying to tell you which one we think is which, but they can kind of overlay. So as we get into, for example, demographics of the superstar leader, we talk about what jobs have they had before, right? Where have they worked? Do they have a family? Are they married? Do they have kids? What's their education like? You know, are they self-taught? Are they, you know, do they have a master's degree? You know, and this may be industry specific as well. And that's the other thing that comes out of the workshop and really brand stories, we get to know you. And so therefore, what industry are you in will help define a lot of this data as well. We kind of figure out what their background is. Where have they worked before? How did they grow up in this industry? Or how did they grow up to be a superstar leader? Like, what is it? What's their why? Why did they, well, what has put them in this place where they're at right now? Okay. We talk about basic things like age, location, gender, and then, you know, kind of a quote to summarize their way of thinking, right?
I really like this part, the quote, because it gives a really concise statement. It wraps up everything that you know about how this person thinks. It can just be 1 to 2 sentences, maybe 3 or 4. And it really is just a summary of what it is that their biggest pain point is and how they want to solve it. And anyone who's flipping through your personas in your internal team can look at that, read that statement, and have an understanding just from reading that one quote of how that persona thinks.
Yeah, absolutely. For example, some of the data that you may not be able to see on the slide there is, you know, it says that this person is average age is like 24. They're a homeowner. They're married, or maybe it's 34. It's 34. So they have a bachelor's degree. Some of their habits, right, is they're mainly extroverted, but can adapt. They're very like chameleon-like, so they can adapt. That's what makes them a leader. They process things very fast, where the genius person may process them slowly because they're less worried about the superstar leader may be less worried about the details, all right? Goals, for example, is they enjoy change and challenges. You know, they love more time to learn new things. They want to learn about everything. They're that person that kind of we've always talked that maybe our parents have always talked about, like, oh, you should know a little about a lot of things. These guys know, these people, these men and women know a lot about a little things, a little about a lot of things. That's the way I want to say it. Yeah, thanks. All right, sorry. Okay, so goals they have, I went through that. So let's see, values, they value integrity, vision, loyalty. What do they worry about? They worry about financial stability. They kind of had a little bit of a lack of confidence. You know, it doesn't come out too well because they're very extroverted. But the reason that they listen and the reason that they process things fast is because they want to impress you, right? Because they have low confidence. All right. So that's something that the superstar leader does. All right. Okay. So let's move on. Let's see. We got so we're talking about the superstar leader. We've got we're talking about psychographics. We're talking about professional demographics and psychographics. So they're usually the CEO. What goals do they have? So like they're about success at all costs, right? So they're the pusher. Maybe they push the genius a little bit to expand their horizons when it comes to ideas or things that might fit inside the brand. You know, they may push the industry veteran to network and kind of give them more data, right? They may push the sales animal, obviously, to get more sales, right? So you think about from that standpoint who they are. What do they worry about? They worry about their legacy. You know, they're very concerned. They take things to heart as far as if it's a startup situation, right? They're out pushing it, and they this is their baby. Even though, you know, they may not have been the initial startup and not their idea, they buy into it and they love the idea and they love the thought and the why behind things, right? And so they're about legacy. They're also about stability. The reason they're doing this is because they want something for the future. They look long term, and that's what makes them a great leader, but also makes them the superstar, right? Is they look long term for an organization and they say, we can do this. This is how we can grow, and does this fit inside a brand? And they kind of own those items, right? So what else do they worry about? If everyone sees value in them, they worry about that. Like they appear to be stressed, and I talk about this a little bit inside a brand story usually, or in why, but they appear to be stressed, but it's really about like a passion, right? So you want to speak to that, right? You want to speak to long-term partners, right? And we'll get into messaging in a minute, but that's what you want to speak to when you talk to this person. We talked about personal and professional information, mostly demographics, but we tied into a little bit of the psychographics, which we'll get into a little bit more, and how that kind of affects their digital behavior. So let's talk about that a little bit. So environment. Sarah, I didn't ask you, do you have any, what I miss on the, when we came to,
Great.
okay, great. All right. Just, you two just jump right in. This is conversational. So
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, go ahead.
Can you give me the mic?
I think so.
Yeah.
I know there's some overlap. Are the demographics more of like a more solid information as opposed to like psychographics are less solid, like
So-
less fact-based?
Yeah. So I think that, I actually think that, that it's the other way around, because if in a workshop or in interviews, you would say, I'm going to interview 4 of your customers, right? And there is, 3 women and 1 male, right?
Okay.
Can I just build the persona and say that, oh, they're all female? No, right? But those are facts, right? I mean, those are factual things, right? Or how old are they? Or what position do they have inside the organization that they're selling to, right? So actually, I think there's more speculation, all right, from the team when it comes to the demographics, okay? So what we have to do inside of personas is we have to make sure that those are solid enough that we can then base kind of factual data on it. We can run reports. We have access to websites that will tell us, the CEO of a company that has less than 10 employees, what's their average age, right? Or less than 5 employees, let's say, if we want to talk startup, or how long they've been in business. So we can find that data, right? But we have to have a starting point at some point. But then what we do is we base those psychographics. Well, how many of those individuals have a Facebook page? All right. How often do they use it? Right. The interesting part about, and as we get into it a little bit more, we'll talk about screen time, the screen time alerts that you get on your phone, how long you've been on your phone. The great thing is that, I mean, for a marketing person or for someone who's using a marketing strategy, that data may be available to us at some point and say, how long does this particular person spend on Facebook? How long does this person spend on Instagram or on digital ads or in this forum or networking in person or whatever? So that data, as an individual, it may scare you, but as a marketer, it's good data to have. So I would say that it's kind of 50-50, right? But the statistics that come into psychographics are based on that data. So yes, I would say that they have to be somewhat factual, but again, we're making educated assumptions here. And so it's better than not making any assumptions. Personas inside of a marketing strategy are there for a reason, and then they adhere. Are there startups out there that have a genius that's also the superstar leader? Absolutely, right? But if you build messages that go to one or go to both, right, or go to one and the other, then that person may react to both, right? So what we want to do is kind of figure out what by splitting them out, it makes them easy to say, oh, Tyler's superstar leader, Sarah's industry veteran, right? Like, and so as we meet people digitally or in person, we know how to handle those people, right? What's interesting about personas is that when you deliver this data, what usually happens is the client goes, oh, well, yeah, of course that is. And they start nodding their head and they're like, oh, that's totally Jerry. That's Jerry from so-and-so, right? So, and that's what we want, is we want to understand, everyone who's usually in the workshop understands who they are. What a marketing strategy and the persona data that you're talking about, the persona, the psychographics or the demographics, is really for the people that don't know, not the industry veteran, but maybe the sales animal who comes from, selling mobile homes, right? And he's like, I'm a sales guy, right? And he comes in and he needs to know I've never sold software before. Here's your people.
Here's a starting point.
Yeah, here's a starting point, right? He has a starting point, and then it's easier to, to involve other folks. Maybe you don't want to hire marketing people inside your organization. So you have this marketing strategy that you can hand to a marketing agency and they can say, hey, here you go. Here's who our people are. Okay, great. So
what I love about having personas is that it gives you someone to envision speaking to as you're creating. So here at HMG, I come up with messaging and execute on marketing campaigns. As I'm doing that and building out content, I have to think, who am I speaking to? And you can have an idea in your head, but if you have a specific person that you're talking to, it just makes a lot more tangible, real, that, more personable, that you can actually talk to someone and feel like you're having a conversation because you know who you're directing your messages to.
Yeah, the first time I ever did persona work, I don't even think we called it persona work. It was in the late 90s, and we ended up actually making posters on the wall of like who they were. And it was great because our customer service team would come in and say, just talk to a Sally. And they put their hand on their head and everybody would go, okay, well, how'd you handle that? Well, I told her this, this, and this. Oh, well, she is happy then. Yeah, absolutely. So it works throughout the organization. So this defining of a customer audience works great. We're using it for marketing strategy at this point, but yeah, defining customers is really what we're doing. So let's talk a little bit more about psychographics. When we talk about digital habits, this is where we get into the idea of how they are behaving digitally and how we move this kind of into the world of HMG and what we do here. So when and where do we find them? Like physical, social, and virtual hangouts, you know? If we're in Austin here, if you were to say the name of like 3 different bars, you could probably define who they are that go there, right? Mm-hmm. You know, you could say, oh, it's on, okay, so it's on South Congress, so it's this. It's on North Austin, it's this. It's downtown, it's this, or it's east side, west side, whatever, right? So, you know, kind of defining that data, it's really fun to do. You know, it's really kind of fun to do. But yeah, physical, social, and virtual hangouts, you know, where do they hang out at? And as you can see on the left there, we believe that the superstar leader, he or she spends 20% of his time on Facebook, 10% on Twitter, 10% on Instagram, 10% really all along. But we talked about something interesting, right? He loves to learn new things. So he spends 20% of his time on YouTube, mm-hmm. right? So he's also the guy that's like, oh, honey, I can put in the disposal. I just watch YouTube, right? So like, again, a team of 4, you have to be resourceful, right? And so he's the guy that they go to and go, hey, how do we do this, right? So, and then of course LinkedIn, right? Because he's all about networking. He's a, you know, that kind of thing. He's an extrovert. So, okay. So, and then also best platform to communicate in. One of the really great things that I love about persona definition is up in the top right-hand side where it says digital influence outside their industry, digital influence inside their industry. Okay. So in other words, how do people perceive them as knowledgeable? Like what's their influence, right? If they were to share something on LinkedIn inside their industry, like it's pretty high. People are going to be like, oh, superstar leader knows what he's talking about. Even outside of his industry. If his neighbor asks what lawnmower to buy, he's probably going to tell him, hey, I bought this one because of this, this, and this, and this, right? And neighbor might go on and be like, yeah, okay. Superstar leader knows what he's talking about. Right. Okay. So that's another thing that you have to be careful of too, is when you talk about messaging and what they share and who they share it with, they may share it with people that can also be your customer as well. So, okay. They're great for remarketing.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, just a note on environment. So I think of environment, well, it's the where. Where are you going to find these people? Where are they going to be spending their time the most? And of course, we're looking primarily at digital, but like we were talking about, I mean, that's going to extend out to events around town, networking opportunities. You know, you're going to come across these people. They might shop at a certain kind of grocery store. They might go to certain restaurants or bars. So it's really looking holistically at where you're going to encounter this person and where you're going to be able to get their attention. So maybe they're on YouTube, but maybe that's not the prime place for you to be able to reach them because they're busy doing other things or they're multitasking.
Yeah.
Maybe you can have a more effective reach on another platform. So it really is just drilling down into where do they spend the most time, where are you most likely to encounter this person, and where can you most likely get their attention? Exactly.
Yeah, just because they spend a lot of time on YouTube doesn't mean you should advertise on YouTube. If you're selling, you know, if your product is a SaaS product, you're selling software, you know, it may not be the best place to reach them, but it might be. Depends on what kind of software you're selling, right? So all of that is defined by product and features and benefits as well. So great. All right, so let's talk a little bit about content responsiveness. So Sarah touched on this a little bit as far as being responsive to content. So what we do is we kind of go through, and we have the clients here that, you know, they may want to run TV ads or do product placement, whether it's digital ads, print, digital influencers, right? They're more the digital influencer, the superstar leader is, than they do trust other people inside of digital influence, right? You can see they're up to, I think it's up to 50% there. B2C reviews and B2B reviews, how are they responsive? So in other words, when you're going after them and you're looking for them, right? If you have an influencer that's in their industry, you may want to put a digital ad that talks about, hey, go see the review of our product by this person. They're more likely to go see that, right? But that ties right into them with being on YouTube, right? So you see what I'm saying is that you may want to have an influencer and then run an ad in front of that influencer's influencer's data about your product, right? Okay. All right, and then we get into messages. So that, when it comes to opportunities, like multiple contacts work, right? Because you may miss them, but once you get them, they're the first person to click. The superstar leaders usually your first bunch of clicks on it, right? They want to learn new things. They're very deadline driven. So therefore, if you're running a free sign up to test out your software, they're going to be the people that sign up. But you may want to, as you approach them in digital advertising, you may want to push them and say, hey, this ends tomorrow, right? You may want to use information or messages based on this ends tomorrow, okay? Because they're deadline driven, right? And then other messages, so offer group training, right? They're all about getting these other 4 people together, right? If you think about the dynamic of these 4 people, like these 4 people could really have a brawl, right? You've got an industry veteran, you've got a genius who thought up the product, and then you've got the sales guy, right? There could be a lot of conflict in there, and he or she is the person, the superstar leader is the person that's kind of like brings everybody together, lightens the mood, kind of brings everyone together. And so therefore, offering like, oh, hey, the genius guy doesn't really want to learn this, doesn't want to learn from your product or learn from you. So I tell you what, why don't you come in, let's get lunch together and we'll all sit down and talk about the product together, right? That's the person that you're talking to. So offering like a group setting or even something where like it's interactive, where everyone can participate and ask questions and kind of show off, that might be an opportunity for you to close the sale, right? So they may be your link, all right? So content preferences, most effective messaging. So we touched on all that. All right, so let's jump into messaging. I hope I didn't already cover this slide. I bet I did. All right.
To me, messaging is really kind of the point of developing your personas, because once you understand who it is you're talking to, then you figure out what it is that they want to hear. So I like to take the information from personas and come up with a messaging chart, and that just helps me as I'm coming up with content. What are key phrases that each of these personas wants to hear and responds to well? And maybe this persona wants, something quick or something that is backed up by facts and statistics, or would probably respond well to repetition since they're busy and they probably miss when you're speaking to them or when you're getting your message across. So it really is just kind of compiling like those key terms, key phrases that you can bake into different campaigns and advertising messages in order to get this person to respond.
Yeah. So what we've done here is we've taken 2 of the other personas. So on your left, you have the sales animal. In the middle, you have the superstar leader, I believe. Yeah. And then on the right, you have the industry veteran. So as you can see, the industry veteran from a digital influence, from an influencer standpoint, is really high. All of them are fairly high when it comes to digital influencer. When you see B2B reviews, look how the industry veteran jumps up when it comes to B2B reviews, right? Because first of all, they're the person that's going to be able to sniff out all the crummy reviews and be like, oh, this person didn't know what they were doing, right? We've all read reviews like that, right? But this industry veteran is going to know that this product does this and this is why they like it. So they're high when it comes to B2B reviews. Any other blaring? Let's look at other blaring differences. No, it's really about digital influence and B2B reviews. So, all right. Okay, when it comes to startup. Okay. All right, let's move on to the journey.
This is just a quick note to keep in mind that each of your personas might spend more time in the marketing funnel at different phases of the funnel. Some people might come to you already having done a ton of research and they know quite a bit about competitors and they come ready to make a decision. And so the way you speak to them and the way you move them to action is going to be more focused on the value that you can provide with your products or services versus somebody who maybe has never heard of you before and is going to spend more time kind of bouncing around between awareness and engagement, getting familiarized with your company, following you on social media, downloading, content that you can offer to them. speaking to them differently by offering different types of value with the content that you're giving to them.
Yeah, I think we need to do that. We need to do that blog post on the air popper, because I think it's way better than the funnel ever was. But if you've ever had popcorn in the popper, and what Sarah's talking about is how long it takes those kernels in that air popper. They'll kind of, you plug in, set on the counter, and then you put the kernels in it, and then it kind of heats up in a cylinder, and then it kind of comes out the top. Like some people, some kernels are ready to pop right away, right? With your data. Superstar leader, they're ready. Sales animal, he's like, okay, whatever, let's go. Where the genius and the industry veteran, like, are going to sit around in there a little bit. They're going to take a little bit more to warm up before they pop out, right? And make a decision. And so therefore, think about all the layers and the levels of heat that are inside of that air popper, right? And where those people are in there and how they move around, right? The superstar leader may be right at the top at the beginning and then move back down to the bottom, right? They move around in there in a circular motion. And so maybe we just need to write that blog on the air popper instead of the funnel. But yeah, so Sarah's right though. Where they move around in there, and then what you say to them at a certain point, right? That superstar leader that we talked about earlier, that person is moving around in there, and really maybe all of the messaging that you have for your product is going to work on them, right? It's just a matter of how then they attach themselves to another kernel in there and then pop out, right? Whether it be the industry veteran that they get behind them, or the genius, or the sales animal that says, hey, listen, let's go. Like, this is what we need to do. Let's get everyone else and get out of here. So, and make a decision on this, right? So think about it from that standpoint when we're talking about all the messaging that goes around inside of a marketing strategy and how you talk to the personas. So, okay. All right, great. How do you apply personas to your marketing strategy? I think we've kind of covered most of it, but yeah. So, yeah, Sarah, you want to touch on channels?
Well, basically, you can bring all of them up.
Okay, great.
Basically, this is just showing what we just talked about, that once you have your personas defined, then you know where to contact them, when to contact them, and what to say to them. And it all works together in a perfect system that helps you have the most effective reach and the most effective engagement with your target audiences. Great,
excellent. So when we talk about channels and timelines and messaging, we define whether we talk about your product as well, and what time of year is it best, to start talking about your product. Is there a time of year that's best? Is there a time of the, time of the week? Is there a better weekday or day of the month to talk about your product? What time of the day is the best to talk about your product? Many times if it's a consumer product, it's about when are your customers online? There's great data out there that we have access to. And so that's imperative when we start to build once we get through persona work inside a marketing strategy, and we talk about channels and timelines and messaging and things like that. So good job. Cool. All right. Keep in mind, don't base your personas off just one customer. Okay. They should be realistic and make sense in real life, right? We know we're going to make some assumptions, right? But they're educated decisions and educated assumptions. Don't make them around generic assumptions. All right. So yeah, you really have to dive in, and you have to be the type of person that's willing to question your initial thought when you're doing persona work. You may have in your head who they are, but there's going to be different nuances based on their background, based on their experience. So you have to get in, and the best work you can do is customer interviews. Do your customer, what I try to do is do customer interviews first, then I do the workshop. And then sometimes I'll contradict what they say. I'll say, well, I talked to so-and-so and they said this. Oh, well, they said this because of this. Okay, all right, great. Then I know they know their customer really well. So, okay. All right. Okay, let's talk. Let's do Q&A.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. So first of all, I'm a proponent of personas, and I think they're super important in kind of creating an anchor for, marketing strategy decisions and all that stuff. But it sounds like something like this can take time to kind of research and develop. If a project is kind of limited in timeline or budget, are there any sort of quick go-to persona building techniques that maybe don't require as much time, but still provide at least some value, like some quick sort of methods?
Yeah, inside of brand story, we define what we call, we do audience definition. So if someone comes to HMG and we go through the brand story process, we do audience data, which is basically we define the audiences for whether it's a web project or a design project. We try to define the audiences, and then we talk about kind of what their wants are and what their needs are. So as far as basics go, I would think about those two categories, wants and needs. It does speak a little bit to features and benefits of the organization of the products. You got to talk about inside a brand, we more talk about the features and benefits of the organization. But inside of that data, there is some persona work that's done a little bit because we want to understand who we're building a website for, who we're or potentially for marketing strategy later to understand that. So I would think about, we kind of define it as audience definition here, and it's about wants and needs.
Yeah, and I would add on to that, what we're showing here is part of what we deliver along with our marketing strategy. It's part of our marketing strategy, and it's obviously very detailed, very comprehensive. When it comes down to actual execution of marketing, no matter whether we provide an official marketing strategy or not, we have to do this work on the front end to go in and define who the personas are and how they think and how we can reach them and how to speak to them. And so there can always be a reduced version where we, don't go so in depth, but are still able to come up with, the platforms that they're most likely going to be on, kind of the information that John was just discussing for audience, defining your audiences. That's just an integral part of any marketing campaign that you do, period.
Yeah,
so,
I'm not sure I'd want to do a marketing campaign or really kind of, I'm not sure I'd want to get into a marketing, like an execution type relationship with a client that didn't want to spend the time to define personas, because I mean, then we're kind of like shooting in, like, it's not fish in a barrel, we're shooting in the dark, right? We kind of get an idea, but how are we going to differentiate our results and our KPIs based on data that they've already been marketing to? So all we're really doing at that point is regurgitating the messaging that they've been doing prior, which we can do. It's just a matter of whether that's been successful or not.
Yeah.
So if you've been doing marketing prior and you don't have persona definitions, you have a good idea. I'd want you to go through marketing strategy first, just because it really lays out a lot of the kind of the execution pieces later on. So I think to answer, I think really defined persona definitions, there's really no shortcut in my opinion. Yeah, when we're defining personas for a marketing execution relationship. So
about like on the flip side, if I know this was like a mock-up one for if you're targeting small startup businesses.
Yeah.
If you were going to do something like this for if you're trying to market to a whole industry,
okay.
would you take these kind of personas and try to slice them down even more?
It would depend on what the industry was, but given that just the basic scenario like that, I would think about the key people that are the key people that I'd be kind of going after or trying to influence in a relationship when it comes to the I think about a company that I need to get in with, right? That I'm trying to reach, and if I need to reach the CEO, then great, right? I'd make that a persona. But if I didn't, I might be, it might be the head of customer service, right? If it's let's just say we've been talking about software today. So let's just say it's a software tool that, ensures great call routing and things like that for inbound calling, for example. I would start there. I would start with, I might even start with the customer service folks because they're the ones that might have the largest voice inside of the organization. I might start with them, and hit them and then try to hit their boss, from that standpoint, define personas in that way. You may not have to go after an entire the entire organization. Just go after the influencers inside the organization, which at that point would be the customer service or call center people, right? And then if you had then they might say, oh, well, I've been reading about that software, we should try that, let's call somebody. And then boom, we hit that person with the digital ad or some kind of contact, whether it be an email campaign or whatever. You hit them with the decision maker, right? So I would say that it just depends on the product. So,
Okay.
all right, well, great. Well, thanks again, everyone, and check back in. We'll post this on YouTube for you guys to check out. But I think we have the next one coming up too, right, Sarah?
Yeah.
We'll
It'll be next month.
yeah, next month we'll have one. So be in touch. I think we're going to touch on another aspect of marketing strategy, maybe.
The actual execution of it.
Oh, okay. Oh, great. Excellent. Okay. All right. Well, everybody tune in then. Thanks very much. And we'll see you around.
Joining.
Yeah. Stay creative.